Right, so this particular session is on imports and or basically like naming conventions. So for example, if we have x equals 10 and y equals 20, and then we could do something like, in fact what I'll do is zoom in a bit, so I think it's Control plus, yeah, that zooms in so we can see a bit clearer there, and I'll remove the sidebar, although I'm going to show the sidebar later. But if we do something like z equals x plus y, we know exactly what's going to happen, and we can do a print of z over here, and when we F5 it just to run it, just down below we get 30. That's our result, and that's expected. And one of the things that we do know is that, like, if later on in the code, so we've declared our variable up here x equals 10 and y equals 20, is if later on in the code we say x equals 20 and then we just try to run this same piece of code, we know that our answer is going to be 40, because what happens in Python is that this variable here, on line number 7, it overwrites this variable here on line number 4. That's the way that Python behaves. But what I'm going to do now is actually do imports. So let's just do that. And where is it? Over there. I'm just going to scroll up. I call this folder test03. It's a blank folder at this point in time. So I'm going to make a new file now. So if you do new file, and we'll call it first file .py, you've got something like that. And in fact, we can take all of the code from here as well. So let's just copy that there in the first file. So there we go. We've got our first file. We've got x equals 10, y equals 20, and then we overwrite x equals 20 here on line number 4. So the next thing that we need, or what we're going to try to do now, when we see that the overwrite on line number 4 is has overwritten line number 1, so the x has superseded itself. But what we're going to do now is we're going to create a second file. So new file, and we're going to call it anything we like. So second underscore file .py, and we're going to import some stuff from this file. So instead of saying on our first file here that x and y, we've got their values, we're going to take those values and we'll paste them into here. And in Python, then we can remove this x equals 10 and this y equals 20, and then we can do something like import and then second, if it comes up, second file. So there we go. And in fact, I'm just trying to think, import. We can do import second file this way. Now, y is not defined at this point in time, but let's just put, we could put an alias as sf for second file. Now, our value of x now would be sf dot, and then we can see the variables are set in the attributes of the second file here by way of the extension, and we've got sf.x and then sf.y would be the other one, so sf.y, and then we would have sf.x, and over here we would have sf.y would be our other variable here, and then we could have it this way. We have no conflicts over there, and if we did want to overwrite sf.x, we could then thereafter do sf.x, I guess, equals well, let's first do a print of it just to see that, just to verify that we get this over here, we get this 10 plus 20, so we should still get 30. So we run our little piece of code, the import's done, and there we go, we get a 30. And then we could just say that sf.x equals 20, for example, and we'd run this piece of code, and let's see what happens, and indeed we get the 40. So we had this second file, we imported its two attributes here. The first attribute was x equals 10, and the second attribute is y equals 20, and then we decided to overwrite the attribute. Now, in fact, I think we could probably print sf.attributes or something like that as well. So we could do print sf dot, probably dict or something like that, the dictionary of it all. I'm just wondering what if there's anything else that's a bit clearer, but we could do that sf.dict. I just wonder if that should print. Let's have a little look and see what comes into that. Here's a dictionary that's actually created. Yeah, there we see the X and the Y. And what we've seen is that X is now 20 and Y is 20 because we've appended it in the dictionary. And if we did a print earlier on of this dictionary here, so just before we did the amendment, we could do the same thing and hit F5 just to run it. We see, let's have a little check if it's done. Yeah, here's our first dictionary, x equals 10, y equals 20. And then afterwards, after all of this stuff that goes in there, there's our next dictionary over here, so we've modified the value of X, which is perfectly fine. Now, the whole point of this is that if we imported, because I see these imports quite a bit, and I saw it somewhere, but we could do from second file import, and then we could import like X, and then we could do, and also we could import X and Y, which is fine. We can do something like this, and then we're back to our original position, which is, so if we start deleting all of this stuff here, we can then do an X and a Y, and again we know that they're defined, so they're all perfectly fine over here. When we print out Z, we have our same value of 30 because X is now back to being the value of 10 and Y is the value of 20. So that's all perfectly fine. Now, here comes the issue, is that so we can, like, because there might be like lots of variables there, or maybe we're just like tiny bit lazy or something, but we can do something like import star, which is import everything from there. Now, again, when we run this code, we're not really going to hit any issues at this point in time because X equals 10 and Y equals 20, and we're still going to get this print 30 over here. Just down below, we get the print 30. So there's no issue over there, but let's say, for example, we do something like, so let's create like a third file. So over here in our test import, we're going to do a new file, and I'll just call it third file.py. And I think, like, possibly it's going to be obvious what the issue might be, but let's just go and copy for the second file's contents. Well, there's not much to copy, to be fair, in our worked example, but we've got our third file over here, and we'll just hit save on that, and we can now do from third, let's have a little see if that works, from third file import star. Now the question is this, is that where is this X actually coming from? Is X actually coming from the second file, which is this file over here, or is it the X coming from this file over here, which is the third file? So anyway, when we run it, we're not going to see an issue at this point in time because either way they're both set to the same value. But what happens if, or at least which one's going to take precedence? And I'm going to say, I don't actually know this 100%, but I'm going to say that the precedent is taken from the second line here. So whatever's in the second file, whatever's in the latest file that's read, is where this, and this is the problem with wildcards, is that you can get an inadvertent overwrite because Python hasn't thrown us an error. We don't see any errors at this point in time. So if I just change that to 20 over here, and what we'll notice, so what we see now is we've got third file X equals 20, Y equals 20, and our second file we've got X equals 10 over here and Y equals 20. So when we try and run this code, let's see what happens. Oh, we can get a 30 or a 40, and there we go, we see we get a 40. And presumably, if we switch the order around, so is it, we switch the line ordering around, so now we're going to import the third file first and the second file next, F5. And this is, I'm going to call it the avoidance of wild cards. So this way round, we got a 30. We see that down below over here, and the previous way round, we got a 40. And the thing about this is, like, we know intrinsically because the two files here are very visible. You know, we created them for the purpose of the example. They're very small, but we can easily overwrite. So I'm just going to put over here, let's avoid wild. And you know, one way that we would see this is, for example, had we have done x comma y here and x comma y, it would probably been at least obvious or visible here, because we know that our second file, any other variables in our second file now are going to overwrite our third file, or vice versa. So it doesn't matter which round. So the second one's always, so this x and y is always going to take precedence over this x and y, because it's literally overwriting its value. So one thing that we should be doing is actually just using the, or at least, well, either changing the names completely, or I wonder if you can x as my x. I wonder if that would work. And my y. There we go. Something like that. Maybe that would work. Because then if we put our third file back in front, F5, so that works fine, because now we've changed what x is and what y are here, so we haven't like overwritten them. So we could do things like that. The easiest way of actually doing this type of import, really, in my mind though, is just doing import second file as like SF, for example, and then import third file as TF, for example, although that might be TensorFlow, because then when we are actually calling these, it's totally unambiguous. So then we'd get this Z equals SF, because we could either choose .x plus SF.y, or likewise, you know, this is for the completely unambiguous, so we could do Z from the second file now, and we could likewise on the line below have Z from the third file, just looking like this basically, and we've then completely separated and isolated them. So this is basically about wildcard imports. They're okay to a very, very limited degree. I do see it on TK-Inter on the actual main website itself. If I was to navigate to the main website, let's have a little check of that, which is just over here, TK-Inter. And if we scroll down here, like we see it here from TK-Inter import style, which is okay if you're just using TK-Inter and nothing else. Although I'm going to still argue that, like, unless you're really familiar with all of the stuff that's in there, all of a sudden you've got like a whole bunch of things. For example, font might get used somewhere else. Like you might not have something like Common Dialogue, because it's quite a unique name. Possibly you might not have Color Chooser, or other things, maybe not TKK. But what we see from here is what this import TK-Inter from TK-Inter import star. So that means just import all of the methods and attributes that are available. And I would just argue that surely it's a bit clearer to sort of like do from TK-Inter or import TK. I actually just do import TK-Inter as TK, because I just think it's a little bit clearer. And then and here's the thing is, where you've got stuff like, I guess, or maybe here you've got a lot of TKKs, root equals TK, but where basically wherever you would have functions or methods that you're trying to call, the wildcard methods come in as their original names, whereas it's much easier just to do something like, if I just go back over here, from or just import TK-Inter as TK, because then you can do TK dot And actually it's got a level of convenience anyway, because now you can see everything that's exposed. So it's much clearer. You can use a dot notation. It's actually helpful. So get Boolean. I don't know, like any of the functions that are available. All of the functions are coloured like this. So in a way, whereas if you do, and I guess this main loop might be a good example, because if I did import tk inter as star, or from tk inter import everything star, because I'm kind of, oops, I didn't mean to put the brackets there, because I'm relatively lazy. Like the main loop was there, but now I've got a main loop that's actually over here. Now it's not necessarily an issue, but the question is or at least the visibility issue is over here. I can see that main loop is from tk inter, and I can sort of like I can sort of like go to definition over here. So I didn't mean to go to definition over there, but I can see that it's come from an import straight away, because the import's up at the top is tk dot something, and it's exposed everything. Where down here it's just, again, if I do like main loop, but here min, is that an inbuilt function, the inbuilt min, or is that a min to do with tk inter? So, and maybe I can pull out one of these, like so tk inter, tk dot. I won't use main loop, but like maybe image. I don't know if I'll do image names even, but let's pick something that's let's pick a function that could be confused with get Boolean. Or get Boolean could be something like that. So get Boolean. Now, where is that from? Is that a tk inter function, or is it, we can sort of like see from here, maybe it's a tk inter function, and we can navigate to it. So that go to definition, and it will take us to get Boolean over here, which is in the tk inter module. I presume somewhere over there we could sort of like see it. That's the wrapper function. But it's just a little bit clearer. Had it have been tk dot, it avoids this confusion on what we might call naming conflicts. So get Boolean, it's clearer doing it this way. We now can't have a naming conflict. I couldn't have defined somewhere over here a def get Boolean over there, return, and then sort of like value as int, or as a bool, let's just say. So there we go, and we're expecting here, I've created this function, and I'm now expecting to get a Boolean from the system from the value. Right, and then I sort of like wanted to call my function. Now, which function is this calling? And only, is it calling the get Boolean from tk inter, or is it calling my get Boolean? And over here, if I do get Boolean, which one is this one calling? Here's get Boolean from the value, because we can see like when we hovered over it, but it's ambiguous now. Whereas this one, when we hover over it, if I can do the control over here, we can see that it's pointing to say. So we've got two functions with the same name that are potentially pointing to different. Well, we got two functions with the same name that are actually pointing to two different functions in two completely different modules, one in the current module and one in this module. So so one in this module, one in the tk inter module. So they're pointing to completely different things and going to run completely differently. And Python's going to totally let us do this. And if accidentally we didn't mean to have this one, we could have overwritten it. So we're going to avoid naming conflicts by doing imports with aliasing involved. So let's avoid wildcard imports and prefer to do imports with alias. And just finally, I guess on that note, but the most common ones that we do see, or at least something that's used a lot, is I think it's called the trio or something like that, but import pandas as PD. We see this a lot. Import numpy as NP, and here's a bigger one, but import matplotlib.pyplot as PLT. Now this is a very common, trio. So these are things that are used in pandas is for a data frame. NumPy is, in fact, put it this way. NumPy is numeric Python for arrays and stuff. Pandas kind of like builds on top of NumPy. It's for the pandas data frame ultimately. All of the NumPy stuff came up, and pandas just says module pandas. And then Matplotlib it builds on this, which is plotting the charts for either the pandas data frames or NumPy arrays, or anything else actually for plotting. So import finally Seaborn as SNS, if you're going to go like one level extra on top of that, which uses some of the pyplot features. But again, these ones are all done with the aliasing kind of like in place by convention, the common trio. Well, I've put the common trio now, and I've actually added an extra one there. But that's kind of like how they refer to it. And then it avoids all of the naming conflicts. And again, we can see sort of like if I do PD dot, you can see like all of the methods and attributes that are available, like floats, 32D type, Excel file writer, and obviously there's some I guess the key one is this data frame here. So whereas again, if I just did import pandas from pandas import star, we'd have the data frame that's available, but then all of these like multitude of functions, and you can see where you can get these naming conflicts, because there's, I don't know, a good like probably 30 or 40 functions are available. For example, melt, you might have something else, or is NA, is null, is NA. That might exist both in NumPy and in pandas, and which one are you using? Are they slightly different from each other? Does merge exist? So that's kind of like a very common naming thing, because you might want to merge, like what did you want to merge? So pandas merge is different from another merge. And again, like maybe there's even a merge, for example, in tkinter. We know there's not, but if there was, which one, and you'd possibly have conflicts. So we're always the common trio with aliasing. Don't know how to spell aliasing, but I guess something like that. And that's basically it. So that's all of Python and aliasing, or how to do imports. Let's say how to do imports the unambiguous way.